Welcome to the combined Board of Health and Park and Rec meeting. Um, This meeting is being held virtually through Zoom. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to a board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring, but it is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use the *6 to mute and unmute your phone so that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address, and after speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. Okay, we can get started. Tim, do you want to start with your presentation? Start from, I guess, square one again. Just we've got a lot more people that are on today, so
yes, I think at this point, I will just kind of just summarize. The other day, going back to last week, we had filed a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen in regards to the COVID-19 response to how Long Lake Beach was going to be operated for summer 2020. In the interim, we've had numerous emails, calls, everything else going on. On Wednesday, we had popped on the Board of Health meeting at the request of Jim Garreffi to discuss the plan and to figure out what the beta load permit was going to be for summer 2020, with the understanding that March 25th through June 1st, that there was going to be some sort of a lag that needed to be covered based off of the fact that the governor's guidelines would need to be somehow enforced, or we would remain in phase one, or the pre-phase one, which is where we are, where the beach should technically be transient only, and no one is technically allowed to be sitting on the beach currently. So with that, we do have somewhat of a framework of a plan in place, but the big picture was that all of us have to get together, all of us being Park Commission, Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, the chiefs, and anybody else deemed necessary to be part of that. And my proposal was that we create some sort of a working group that drafts guidance. We send back to the boards through that representative the draft for changes. We come up with some sort of an edit and finalize that document for the June 1st meeting, which hopefully everybody can jointly file at and figure that out. The question that has, now and always has been in the hands of the elected officials is, what do we do between the 25th and June 1st? And with that, I will turn it over to the boards, because I am here at your leisure. I'm here for the town of, the residents here in Littleton, and we'll do what is asked. I'll provide whatever data you guys need. But at this point, the decision is up to the elected officials in the town on what we should do to move forward. The last thing I want to leave this with is, the four-phased approach deals with everything that Park and Rec deals with. The Recreation Advisory Task Force slide on the email that I sent you guys last night, it covers playgrounds, it covers parks, it covers basketball courts, tennis courts, anything you can think of, all open space, boats, mountain biking, you name it, it's in there. And the working group, I really suggest, because the next thing that we're going to come to is Camp T, which we do need a vote from the Board of Health as well as everybody else, is we're going to go down that road. I think we should all sit down in this working group and make that the best practice going forward so that we can redline or cross out or say we are going to enforce this, we're not going to enforce this, so that us as Park and Rec employees, I can do what you guys feel is the best. We can give a blanket message and we can have a unified statement moving forward towards everybody as to why we're doing things. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I did take a drive down to the lake today, and I am impressed with everything you've done down there. I see the blue snow fencing all around the play equipment so no one can get near it, and the sawhorses in every other parking spot, so there's limited, the parking has been reduced, and all the notifications up on the trailer from talking about social distancing and all the phases, and so you've got everything in place and all set up, and that's awesome. But it's a beautiful day. There were people there sitting on the beach, but they were distancing themselves. They were groups, separated, except for there was a group of teenage girls, not related, all together. And down the other end of the beach, there was a group of teenage boys, not related, but all together. But it's just going to be a battle with keeping people separated. So I was impressed what is set up so far. I really like that. Does anybody else have any comments?
So I'll go if that's all right. I'm Mike Brew. I'm the chair of the Park and Rec Commissioners.
Hi.
So we very much appreciate, Tim's doing a really good job. He's put in a ton of work. The number of emails we've gotten from him updating us on, what he's hearing from the government and the mandates coming down. He's been keeping up with that. So, he's on top of this, and we have full faith in the information that he's giving us. I think he has a good plan in place to execute. We would like to see happen is, well, I shouldn't say we, because I speak for myself, but I have spoken to one of the other commissioners who isn't here today, and we are both on the same page for whatever that's worth. But what we would like to see is on June 1st that our board of selectmen, board of health, all meet together. There's a big decision for the town. A lot of people use the beach, depend on that as recreation throughout the summer. So if we're going to close it, it's a huge decision, and one that I don't think one board should make. We shouldn't make it on our own. I don't think the Board of Health should make it on their own. I think, nor do I think the Board of Selectmen should be making it without input from both of our boards. So what we would like to see happen, what I would like to see happen is for you guys not to take a vote to close the beach until that meeting. After all three boards weigh in and we discuss it as a large group, if that's your decision at that point, then so be it. But that would be my preference, would be to have everyone weigh in. Tim's told us he's getting hundreds of emails or calls regarding what we're doing with the beach. Is it opening? What are the rules? So people clearly are looking forward to going there. I think we should be giving the residents a chance to abide by the guidelines that the government has put forth, that Tim has, if you haven't been down there, there's a huge, Tim's put tons of information down there as far as what the guidelines are. It's on the side of our trailer. So we should give the residents a chance to abide by those rules and, you know, give Tim and our staff a chance to, you know, enforce them. Hopefully, you know, hopefully the residents and the people who go to the beach will, you know, understand that, you know, if we need to enforce these rules, if we need to talk to people about not following the rules, that they will be, you know, it'll be a cordial conversation, and, you know, simply a reminder by our staff to the residents that, you know, in order to keep the beach open, we have to abide by these rules. And so I think, you know, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of it, but, you know, I think on June 1st, that should be the decision that we make as a group. But, you know, the question is, what do we do in the meantime? We have, you know, that's a week away. So, you know, there's a few different things we could do. We could close it until then. We could leave it open the way it is now with all the rules down there. You know, you said you had, Louise, you said you had been down there and saw, you know, most of the people, you know, abiding by the rules. You know, I'm seeing more and more kids unrelated in my neighborhood riding bikes together and different things like that. So, you know, I don't think the fact that there were two groups of kids down at the beach necessarily means people aren't going to be following the rules. I think that's what you're seeing, you know, that's what I'm seeing everywhere these days. You know, people are getting less and less strict with, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily look at that as, you know, a deal breaker. So we could keep it open with those rules in place until then. You know, I think that would be my preference. I worry about, you know, if we shut it down, what does enforcement look like? And, you know, are we depending on Chief Pinard and his guys to, you know, continually go down there and remove people from the beach? You know, I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think, you know, I don't think they're going to do that. And, you know, they are too busy doing other things than having to police the beach. But, you know, you get one person that, you know, doesn't want to leave, and, you know, it's, you know, I wouldn't want to see that happen. So I don't think closing the beach for the next week is the best thing to do either. But so that's my opinion, and you know, looking forward to hearing from everyone else.
Yeah, so let's just be clear that we're just talking about May 25th through June 1st right now. That's it. That's all we're talking about. And so I agree. Tim's put in a load of work, and some other people that he has worked with to come up with a plan. It sounds like a lot for him to manage, but I don't know how else he would do it. So I agree that I think we have to give people a chance and see how I don't want to say behave, but kind of like behave. And if they can't handle it, then we would have to shut it down, because it is a big source that could cause a spike, and we don't want to go backwards in this COVID journey. So I'll be quiet for a while and let's hear some other comments. Does anyone have their hand up, Janet?
Not
Louise or Janet?
This is Mike.
Hold on, Mike. Hold on.
Please, thank you.
Janet, your voice is all coming in garbled. Okay. Sean, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Louise. Sean Sullivan. I'm also on the Park and Rec Commission, one of the commissioners.
Okay.
I haven't spoken to Mike about this
Can you hear me
previously.
now?
Yep, sorry.
Janet, can you mute? Oh, okay. Okay, Sean, go ahead.
Am I lagging or am I okay? Sometimes my Wi-Fi is a little spotty. Okay, very good. I just wanted to reiterate that as a member of the Park and Rec Commission, I agree with Mike and you know, his ideas. To leave it open for a week. I mean, there's risk involved with almost anything that we do, and people have to be given, I think, the opportunity to prove that they can't operate within the guidelines, I think, until we decide to shut the beach down. But in short, I won't waste everybody's time, but one of the Park and Rec Commissions, I agree with Mike. Thank you.
Mike Selden?
Yeah, this is Mike Selden. on the Board of Health. I want to just pretty well stick to the area that I actually have some direct knowledge and been looking at for quite some time. And I'm not intending to, shall we say, overdo credentials, but it just so happens I have a degree, a PhD in molecular biology, biochemistry, and half of the work I've done is in the area of virology. And believe it or not, I can honestly tell that the coronavirus is one of the more difficult viruses to deal with. We know very little about it. With that as big background, I would just briefly say that the Board of Health, as far as I can make out, is the only board. I mean, this is not a turf war. It's just an unfortunate fact that the only thing we can do is either issue or not issue a permit, full stop. And we can certainly make comments and recommendations about plans and all the other items that go along with making the health of residents as safe as possible. But in this instance, as far as I know, unless I'm corrected, the only thing we really do is make determinations about a permit. And I think that there's two dangers here. One is, first of all, the pandemic is not over. It's still going on. You may think it's simply ratcheting down. It really isn't. What's really happened, just in brief, it's just Littleton's sort of like a prototype. Most of the folks in Littleton, thanks to their efforts, have escaped being sickened by it. However, the number of people who are infected and don't know it and are carriers and could pass it on remain unknown. And they're in a greater majority than we might think. We just don't know. The second point I make is that the towns around us, I believe that Tim mentioned this the other day, and I called Acton today because they're nearby and they have a man-made facility, and that's Narra Park, and I asked them what their plan was going forward, and in the interim period of time that we're discussing today, Narra Park will be closed except for walkthroughs. That's what I was told. So on top of everything else, we have to deal with the fact that if we do, in fact, the Board of Health goes through the permitting process, from my point of view, says yes for this period of time, and other boards using their prerogatives decide to open it, you also will look to residents from other towns, including Acton, coming over to use the beach. Which brings me to a third and final point. As far as I can make out, the only two folks in town who are authorized to enforce, that has a legal authority to tell someone, oops, you're making a mistake. Oops, you're making a mistake. Oops, you're making a mistake. And now we're going to shoot, you're in for a fine. I'm sort of contracting it, are the police and Jim's office, period. Not guards, not people working for Park and Rec. My understanding is that and I believe that the governor's made it clear that in terms of local rules and ordinances, those are the only two folks who can enforce. So my inclination at the moment, and this has nothing to do with the plan, it has to do with human behavior and more significantly viral behavior, which in this case doesn't really care about or know about the boundaries. I'm inclined that the Board of Health not issue a permit for the interim time mentioned, and make it very clear that the beach is available for walkthroughs, and let people show us the fact that they can at least adhere consistently and faithfully to existing rules regarding distance. Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Mike. Who is that?
Hi, it's Judy. You have two other board members and Mr. Garreffi that are on the line but do not have their hand raised, and Ms. Napoli that would like to speak.
Okay, how about can we go to Jim Garreffi first, please?
So, Louise, thanks. Again, as we mentioned on the Wednesday Zoom meeting, to open the beach, there should be a permit issued by the Board of Health. Again, in this COVID period, taking into consideration the governor's order, we need to make sure those guidelines that he put in place to open beaches are in place. So I guess part of my question to Park and Rec was, this interim period, were they talking about having it as essentially a managed, are you going to open it with staff? Or is it just going to be say that it's not closed, but nobody's going to be down there and just use the beach as you want?
Jim, was that a question directed at us?
It was a question directed right at you.
Okay. It's not our choice. That's up to the boards. So we are here and, you know, like I said, we've put our plan forward. And so that's the information that we've given, but it's completely up to the Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, Park Commission, for you guys to decide. It's out of our hands as the Parks and Rec Department.
So kind of with that, Louise, my thought is if the beach was opened and staffed, it's certainly a better situation than it just being open for transitory folks and during good weather, because you're going to have, just as you described, people go down and use the beach anyway, and there's not going to be anybody down there to kind of manage it, which means the police will probably then be called to go down and do the enforcement. Like Mike was saying, the Board of Health, primarily Department of Public Health, are the primary enforcement agencies, and your board has authorized the police department to do enforcement under your authority. So again, my thought is if you're going to have it open, it would, or if you're going to not enclose it, and it is to have it open managed so that somebody can at least be down there during the bulk of the day to make sure that that some level of distancing, some level of face covering, if not, some level of order, if you will, is being had on the beach.
Cindy, would you like to comment, please? As you're muted, Cindy.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Garreffi, for that insight. I was just trying to get up to speed on this situation in light of the Board of Selectmen's meeting last Monday with the park commissioners and FinCom. We had discussed the opening of the beach, and there's two variables going on here. One is, public health concerns. The other variable that we're working on separately is the financial piece about funding the operations of the beach throughout the summer. So, clearly having Memorial Day weekend upon us, it's kind of put us all in the hot seat in some respects. I appreciate what the Park and Rec's put together, what Tim's put together. I reviewed the signage. I thought it was that was a smart and good way to get a message out to the residents about expectations and what they should be practicing as far as social distance and whatnot. I do appreciate Mr. Gareffi's comments about he would prefer to see the beach managed and staffed if we were to open it in the short term. I mean, what we had originally asked for was just to have the beach open unstaffed pending our meeting on June 1st, our joint meeting. But if in his professional opinion, he would be more comfortable having the beach open, but having it staffed, I think that's something logistically that we should discuss, because I don't want to discard his viewpoint with that. I just don't know if that's feasible and how that would work. And it does go against what the Board of Selectmen had discussed last week, but then again, Board of Health wasn't part of that discussion. And certainly we would defer to the Board of Health in with respect to making this decision. I think at the end of the day, with respect to some other comments that were made with regard to teenagers congregating, I echo Mr. Prue's comment. I'm seeing that more and more now. They're teenagers, and there's only so much that we can do as a town, as town boards and elected officials to regulate what choices that residents make. So we are limited in some regards, but we do need to focus on what we can control. And I do understand the gravity of the situation with respect to Mr. Zeldin's comments regarding the virus overall, but we do have an excellent town resource here in our community. We're very fortunate to have it. and people want to utilize it. And, you know, whatever we can do to get people out in a safe manner, I think it's important that we try to do that. You know, but that being said, I'm going to defer to the Board of Health at this point, based on the comments that have been made, to see what you want to do between now and the joint meeting that I'm hoping that we can have, that we would like to invite you to on June 1st, so that we can have a comprehensive discussion regarding this situation overall.
Thank you, Cindy. So here it is, almost 4 o'clock on Friday of a long weekend. I don't know how we would get anything, well, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but how we would get anything ready for the 25th. Is there any other comments from a board member?
Can I just make one point of clarification just regarding what Mr. Zeldin said about people from other communities coming to use the lake? The lake is right now residents only. So if lakes are closed from communities around us, you know, they're not going to be allowed to come to Long Lake.
I guess I had a couple questions. You guys talked about staffing or not staffing the beach for the long weekend until June 1st. So if we close the beach, there's no way at all to enforce the regulations of the distancing and the mask wearing, correct? Because Cindy, you said fiscally we're not able to staff it either, or?
Just at the long-term fiscal plan for the beach over the course of the summer. The short term, I can't speak to that. The short term, I do believe that the Park and Rec has a short-term plan in place to staff the beach.
So is staffing available for this until June 1st? Tim,
We
I
can
guess?
make, so the kind of chink in the arm would be, Monday would be difficult. I can speak for myself, but I can't speak for some of the other staff. Holiday. I could not do that alone. I could Tuesday through June 1st, theoretically. We could make it happen. Our administrative assistant finalized my rec thing. So if we wanted to have the blocks available for people to register for, that is ready to start. Logistically, it would be tough, but if that was the behest of the boards, we could make that happen for everybody.
So that was never an issue for this weekend anyway. It sounds like you weren't ready for enforcement of social distancing or anything this weekend. You weren't going to do that.
To be clear, we have no ability to enforce it until the 25th, because that's when the order changes. Right now, technically, the beach should be a transient property, so there should be no enforcement through Monday the 25th unless we could comply.
And just to be clear about the staffing, I wanted to add, so when Tim talks about the staff, he's talking about us as the full-time staff, because all of our part-time staff has been furloughed or we haven't hired them on yet for the summer. So essentially it would be myself, Tim, and the rest of the staff. We'd have to figure out how to operate the beach and, you know, the other things that we're doing at the office at the same time.
And just to add to that, we do have one full-time staff, a seasonal full-time staff member who is still on the payroll, Matt Adama, who is our aquatics director. And as it was put into the notes for the June 1st meeting, it would cost approximately $5,500 to bring him on staff from May 25th through June 30th, which is the end of this fiscal year. Without adding any additional staff, we could come up with a way to operate the beach in our time blocks. And I could figure that out. The issues that we would run into is we would need to figure out what would the boards want after that staff leaves for the day. Because that would basically give, 8 to 10 hours of staffing per day. And then what happens after that. So that's the piece of the plan that I don't have an answer for, because I'm not going to speak for Matt Pernard and his team, because that was kind of where this was the other day. Is I was speaking with Matt and with Chief Pernard and Deputy Chief Patterson about how that worked, because that puts a huge strain on both of their departments. So, you know, in fairness, that's why, you know, also had mentioned the chiefs in my emails earlier today, because I think everybody at some point before June 1st should be involved. But, you know, I can tell you whatever you want me to do, I will figure it out. I will make it happen. I don't know if it's possible on Monday, but Tuesday we can get it done through Sunday until the joint meeting is able to happen between everybody. And then the second piece of that is we just need an answer for when our staff isn't there. I can give you 8 to 10 hours, but other than that, that's really what, you know, with the 5 people, if we can get Matt on board 6, that we could probably make happen.
Jim Garreffi, were you able to get in touch with Chief Pennard?
I did speak to him earlier today, and he says his department has responded to some calls down at the beach. And I think he's of the opinion that I mentioned, that, you know, managed beach gives you coverage during the day, where, you know, I don't think anyone's looking for hard enforcement. I think we're looking for reminding people of the social guidance that's out there, the distancing, the mask, you know, the face coverings. And I think, and again, back to the point about not letting people from other towns on the beach, I assume you can only really do that if you're managing the beach. So I guess the two of us thought that management of the beach, even if it was just the 8 to 10 hours, takes out a big block of the time that we anticipate people will be down on the beach. The beach isn't, you know, it's not, there's not somebody down there all the time anyway, so people do still use the beach for whatever purposes. But while you're operating the beach, you'll have somebody there who can kind of enforce the guidelines that are out there for opening the beach.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, any other comments from the board members?
If I just may again, Madam Chair. So just to clarify the comments that were made, it doesn't, I guess I'm still up in the air about having the beach open, but unstaffed, but relying on residents to kind of self-regulate themselves. Seems like it would be the easiest solution in the interim pending our June 1st meeting. And I just don't know if that is in fact something that Mr. Garreffi and the Board of Health is in favor of or opposed to. I'm not clear on that.
I think we're struggling with it ourselves because we took 2 votes at the last meeting and we kind of went back and forth. So it's good that we're all here again to talk about it in more depth. So we will take a vote again. I guess I'll open it up to public comment, and there's a lot of people that are here. So I am going to limit comments to 1 minute, please.
Madam Chair, can I just interject one thing?
Sure, Tim, go ahead.
So something that was clarified yesterday in our camp meeting with the state was that the phases are not just 3 weeks. They're technically 6. There's 3 weeks of implementation and kind of letting it ride. And then there's 3 additional weeks to collect the data on spikes that might have happened and additional COVID cases that might have come from the reopening that happened. So technically, the phase 1 that starts on Monday, May 25th, the earliest that we can move on to phase 2 is June 22nd. So that was clarified for us by the state in the camp meeting yesterday. And the way that it's being kind of, the verbiage that's being used makes that a little tricky.
Madam Chairman.
Thanks for that clarification, Tim. Mike?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Just one question. Since you're looking to the staff to do some education and what you call enforcement, how many of your staff, to your knowledge, have been tested for COVID?
To my knowledge, I can say almost with 100% 0.
Yep.
Okay. So in generally, folks, maybe there are exceptions, but if you're going to do enforcement interacting with the public, and you can never tell what kind of situations that you may incur, you either should know about your status going in or definitely have access to services immediately after your, shall we say, your period of service is over. Maybe Jimmy can comment on the, shall we say, the wisdom of having folks on the beach to do enforcement for a long period of time, interacting with the public in varying degrees. How much of a, this is not me accusing the staff of anything, but that is the staff that you might hire to do that. But there is much of a potential for spreading as the public is. I think you folks are, I mean, all of us have a tendency to underestimate or want to underestimate the ability of the virus to circumvent our best laid plans, which they've succeeded in doing. And given the number of, I'll repeat, the number of people who do not have the disease in town, it far outweighs the number of people who have been sickened with it. So that means the virus has got a whole new field to play in and a small space. I mean, this is a fraction of the size of NARA in Acton. A small space, doesn't take much, and you're risking, if the town wishes to take the risk with the residents, that's of course a decision. But in this particular case, we're not dealing with a mile's worth of beach. We're not dealing with ocean. We're not dealing with strong, persistent winds, a totally different environment, and people want to understandably get out. And I just expressed my very deep concern that we're underestimating the adversary. Thank you.
Can I just comment on what Mike just said? We would, as the commissioners, we would expect the staff that Alicia and Tim put in place down there, we would expect them to abide by those same guidelines that we expect everyone to abide by at the beach. So they would be social distancing when they're interacting with the public. They would have their masks on. They would, all the rules that we expect the residents to follow, we would expect any staff down there to follow as well. So, I understand your point about them being tested, but, if we're going to invite people down there anyways, not everyone down there is going to have been tested. I would venture to guess the vast majority have not been. So, we would expect those guidelines to be followed by everyone down there, including the staff.
Okay, any other board member comments, Sean?
If I may, is the governor's directive and guidelines, does it say anything about staff needing to be tested in the first phase?
Jim, can you comment on that, please?
I don't know of any requirement for testing staff for any of those guidelines. The goal really is to protect people from getting sick. So doing all the kind of administrative and environmental controls to make sure people are being able to maintain that social guidance, the distancing, the face covering.
Okay, thank you.
And I just had another question. If we decide to close the beach and people still congregate there, we won't have any staff to tell them to move along and separate, and you can't park, you can't come here. We won't have any, I don't know what you want to call it, ability to enforce it if there's nobody there because the beach is closed. They're using it at their own risk, correct?
Alicia, do you want to
Unmute
and say yes?
You. Yeah, that's correct. Because we don't have staff down there, and that was the concern that Chief Bernard had was, if our staff isn't there to kind of be that front line and to say, hey, could you move over another foot, or just so you have to have a mask on. Just a reminder, all of those things. That they would consistently be getting calls to do that. And he does not have the staff to just, have a police officer down there to take on that role of, reminding people of what the guidelines are.
Thank you, Alicia. Any other board member comments? Okay, we can open up for public comment, and it looks
Kevin's got it. Louise,
Kevin
Oh,
wants
sorry, Kevin. Didn't see it.
It's a tough call. I know there's 80 plus people down there right now not wearing masks. Looks like a beautiful day. I think that it's better to have somebody down there trying to talk some sense into people and make sure they're adhering to guidelines. I mean, it sounds like, I'm so grateful for the folks at Parks and Rec and the awesome work they do, with all the programming and the kids. And I fully appreciate the, financial impacts of potentially the beach closing, and it stinks. And I know people need the outlet, they want to go outside and they want to get some fresh air. It seems like people aren't really, the people that are at the beach aren't really paying attention to the guidelines. So I think it makes more sense to have it sort of managed and regulated in some way, shape, or form, rather than just let it be the Wild West out there. And I understand that, the police department's really busy. But I also agree with Mike, this thing is crazy. Like, my son woke up with a fever today and I'm like, oh man, we haven't gone anywhere or done anything. But if somebody's over there to talk some sense into people, that'd be great. I just think that we're dealing with the unknown. So I don't know.
I'm right there with you, Kevin, because since our meeting on Wednesday, I have gone back and forth both ways. Yes, we should close it. No, we should open it. And it's really a difficult.
Seeing the situation down there today, my friend lives by and she sent me some pictures. But yeah, everybody's just like, I mean, people are staying apart. You're right. We saw that. But there's some oversight would be probably a good way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I know I want to change my name to Flip Flop because I can't make a decision either.
I know. Okay. So it looks like we have Eileen Wedegartner. So just so everyone knows, public comments are limited to 1 minute. So Eileen, would you like to make a comment, please?
Christine should go before me. Nordhaus, she's been on hold for a long time.
Oh, Christine Nordhaus, you have 1 minute, please.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of Health, I urge you not to issue the permit until the plan is approved by all of the town boards. I would like to see you not base your vote on whether or not it's convenient for, the enforcement agencies. The LPD's job and the Board of Health's job is to keep the people of Littleton safe. And this is a suggestion. I really think that a great way to get people to adhere to the guidelines that you've posted is to have the police go down there and hand out $300 tickets. People would get the message awfully quickly, and I think you would probably solve your problem. But I'm kind of a battle axe, so that's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Eileen, you're next, please.
Yeah. Oh, I'm unmuted. Okay. I was just curious to see how many people really think that people have been down at the lake not adhering to guidelines within range. I haven't been hanging out down there, but I've done a couple of drive-throughs or walk-throughs, and my experience with people in the town, generally everywhere, is that people are giving each other space and wearing masks and being respectful and trying to stand apart from one another. And it seems either like you go Christine's route and you have the cops down there and they issue tickets left and right, or you kind of got to leave it to the people to police themselves for these 3 days.
So if I can just clarify on that, and I do want to echo the sentiments that everybody has done a really good job social distancing, but there's two things that everybody's in violation of right now. Number one, if you're standing within 6 feet of somebody, you have to have on a mask. And number two, right now we're in a phase where the beach is a transient place only. So technically, if you are not just walking, there is no sitting, there is no swimming. That's not where we're at right now. And so, yes, everybody has done an excellent job. And, kudos to the people who are there, with the exception of no mask wearing, and it's transitory.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Eileen. Are there any other comments from the public? Nathaniel?
Hi. So I live, I don't know, 300 yards maybe from the beach. 400, I don't know, about that range. And I would say, I think I've spent I've gone down and looked. Everybody in my family has gone down and looked. The beach is, it's not as crowded as it usually is, but there's certainly a good amount of people there. As a counter to what Mrs. Nordhaus said, I think, as also a former employee of Parks and Rec, I think when we called the police and asked them to come ticket just people in violation of our parking rules, it takes them a long time to do that, and because they're very busy, I imagine they're even more busy now. I would also say a reason to maybe not slam people with a couple $300 tickets is they're going to hate you guys, and I can't imagine that's really what you want. Because the town politics are fraught enough already, and if you slam people with a couple $300 tickets, it's going to make it worse, and I don't really think that's what you want.
I would have to agree too, because even when we talked to Matt about the mask wearing, initially, it was just a recommendation, and then it became mandatory. And Matt, Chief Pinard said that it was definitely going to be education first before fines and things like that. So I think that's right. It's the right thing to do. Educate them first, and so next time they'll remember to bring their mask and stay 6 feet apart.
Okay, thank you, Nathaniel. And next we have Marianne Greenier. 1 minute, please.
I just want to echo what Mike said. I completely agree with him, Mike Zeldin. And I just want to say no one is going to die from not being able to go to the beach. And my fear is that we have people who are violating the orders that are in place right now, and nothing is being done, it seems, or very little, to stop them from what's happening now. So I despair of actually anyone being able to enforce any of the orders on the beach in any major and consistent way. I would love to see Parks and Rec be able to go through a kind of training or trying out a scenario to see how that would work. I think throwing them into a situation where this weekend, such a busy weekend, they would be trying to hustle to try to deal with whatever's going to happen. I worry about that. And at 90,000 cases in Massachusetts, I just don't want those people who are going to be going to that beach having us have another spread or another jump. I worry about that. I think it's really ill-advised to open that beach. And if we had water that people...
Thank you, Marianne. I'm sorry. That's all. That's a minute. I am sorry, but we have to limit everybody.
Okay, then.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment or reply to Marianne? Jim Garreffi?
Like I said, if people are going to be down there having it managed, I think it kind of gives a firsthand reminder to people. Sometimes people are just unaware, so the general reminder about moving apart, or if you're moving around people, put your mask on. I think there's some value in that. I'm not sure on a nice day enforcement's entirely possible unless you're going to station somebody down there and just keep people off the beach. That's my concern. Is I don't know that enforcement's going to be as possible as maybe managing it and educating people as you're down there.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, how about Erica Podgorni, please? 1 minute, Erica.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to know first, has anyone gone down and measured out 6-foot blocks, and do we know how many groups of people it's safe to have on the beach at any one time, and is that something that is going to be enforced? And secondly, I feel okay about having Tim and Alicia being the ones who are down there enforcing and reminding people of what the rules are. But I'm wondering if we leave if the beach is open for the summer, is that going to fall on lifeguards who are generally teenagers? And, I think that puts them in a dangerous situation, and a situation where they may not be listened to. And unfortunately, there have been situations.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Erica, I have to cut you off. I'm sorry. It's been a minute. Thank you very much. And just to be clear, Erica, we're just talking about the time from May 25th through June 1st, and I'll let Tim respond to your other concerns about the space on the beach. He has a plan for that, so take it away, Tim.
So yes, for all the board members, if you look at the Google Drive I sent you yesterday, the plan is enclosed. Unfortunately, it has not been updated since about a month ago when we looked at it the first time. We do have a plan in place to put some sort of, whether they're fictitious boxes or actual boxes on the ground. The thought was either to use some sort of snow fencing or webbing. Chair Lady Napoli had some concern and had requested that we get with the Disabilities Commission on what would work best to mitigate some of the hazards if it was like a physical box. To go over your plan, Erica, based off of the numbers of how many people could be on the beach, how many people come in the car, the guidelines state 200 people per acre, but you have to be able to achieve boxes that have 12 feet between them as quote unquote talling areas. Anytime you are seated in your talling area, you can take your mask off. Anytime that you are walking from your talling area to swimming, you can have your mask off. Anytime you are actively maneuvering around the beach, other than those 2 times, you have to have your mask on if you are within 6 feet of anybody. So yes, we do have that plan in place. We've even gone as far as saying that we can move the swim box into chest deep water and create buoy lines that run from the beach out to the swim line that would almost create lap lanes like what you would have in a pool. And each of the boxes would then have their lane where it might be a little easier to do the 6 feet distancing, or at least the family groups knew where they were supposed to be. On top of that, as cars, if we went this route, as people came in and showed their receipt for their time period, they would be giving a parking space number that would correspond with the number of the block on the beach. So it would be very easy to kind of match everything up. But that's like way out there. This is what we wanted to talk about the Board of Selectmen with, the Board of Health, and everybody else we need to be involved, because we think that the plan meets all the requirements, but there's so many people who have to weigh in who are part of all of those boards. So we have thought about all of that stuff in great detail. And then just lastly, to your point, one thing that I recommended very early on to the Outdoor Advisory Task Force was that this is my personal opinion and professional opinion, that anybody who is asked to work in these situations, we only hire people who are over the age of 18. So they are making decisions for themselves, not being a waiver signed by their parents, to actually have a person who is an adult who can make a decision and stick with that decision because of the various things that can come along with that. So thank you, Erica.
Okay, next up we have John Zarek. Sorry if I didn't get your name correctly, John. You have 1 minute, okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's John Kurzwick. Thank you for the time. I just wanted to chime in a little bit about, what information and what data the board is using in order to try and make decisions. I think one of the reasons why we're struggling with making these decisions is the data. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of around this virus. So, what I look at when I think about outdoor activities and the virus, for the most part, all the outbreaks have been occurring indoors with people in close contact. We all know about the nursing homes. We know about the cruise ship. We also have the aircraft carriers. So, my question to the board is, what information, are we just using CDC guidelines, or are we trying to get data ourselves, whether it's actually going out to get that data or using peer-reviewed articles to try and make some decisions. Thank you.
Jim Garreffi, could you please reply to that?
Sure. So I don't think any one small board of health really has the ability to do any data collection, data analytics. So what we're really relying on is the information from the state, their opening times and the governor's orders, their guidance on how those activities should be operated. And again, big part of that is the social guidance that they talk about, the distancing and the mask, the face covering. So the governors and Department of Public Health, they're the ones doing the data analysis and determining what kinds of data they're looking at. And the big push they want to do is make sure that the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. So that's where they're doing their decision making. The town of Littleton, and I would guess that most communities, maybe Boston has the ability to do it, but most towns aren't doing their own data analytics.
Okay, thanks, Jim. And next, Jason. 1 minute, please, Jason.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, well, I'm a lifeguard at Long Lake Beach, or at least I was last summer. And just a lot of the lifeguards are wondering about if we're going to have jobs this summer, pretty much. So we just wanted to, or I know I joined the meeting late, so I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but we just want to know the timeline of how and or when, if we're going to get jobs. And yeah, that's pretty much it for all of us.
Thanks, Jason. Tim or Alicia, do you want to reply to that?
I'll defer to I hate to keep bringing it up, but it goes back to that June 1st date, and when we can make a decision, and when that information is going to come out, because I feel very badly, and I have kind of kept everybody at bay. But the reality of the situation is we were waiting for the governor's guidance. We got that guidance on Monday the 20. I don't even know what day is today. Monday the 20th, Monday the whatever it was, this Monday, and it's we have to make a decision to know. We have to look at all the finances. We have to see if if it makes sense, and under the current conditions and the state of the department, that was one of the things that we really needed, the Board of Selectmen to be able to have time to digest and, figure out exactly where it was going to be. Because, to be very honest, it's not just, can we hire people and can we afford to pay them? It's, do we have the ability to fund the beach, or do we have the ability to charge some sort of a membership? What is everybody's comfort level in that? Because the reality of the situation is we do have members of the community who, have been unemployed. And, one of the things we've talked about throughout this whole entire process is equity, and how do we make this fair? So to answer your question, Jason, we have to work through this, and hopefully in that June 1st meeting, we'll be able to come to a resolution that figures out exactly how many staff, if any, we're going to be able to employ. Okay. I'll turn it over to Mike or Cindy, because ultimately, I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
Yeah, well, I'll just, to take a little heat off you, given that you're Jason's boss, it's not Tim or Alicia's decision whether or not we're able to hire lifeguards this year, just based on we usually use the membership fees and parking fees to fund the beach. But we haven't been able to do that this year for obvious reasons. So we don't know where the revenue is going to come from to staff the beach, which is why we're having this June 1st meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, to see, if we can do it, to, defend the Board of Selectmen a little bit. I don't know what decision they're going to make, or FinCom, but, there's a lot of hardships been created, not just for our town, but for other towns, because of this. And, if they don't fund the beach, it's, that's a decision that they can make. It would be, it would be understandable. I'll say that. So, tune into the meeting on June 1st, speak up then, and, we'll see how the June 1st meeting goes. But it's not, it's not up to Tim or Alicia.
Okay, thank you.
Evan?
Yeah, I just think there's so much uncertainty around the whole thing. I think we have an opportunity right now leading up to May 25th to try and figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. And Tim, I don't know what your availability is. And Alicia, I don't know. We're going into a long holiday weekend, but with what's going on there right now and the people that are there, not wearing masks and not adhering to the policy, I think this might be a good opportunity for somebody to head down there, start to police it, see how this thing is going to work. If we do decide to open things up, do we have the bandwidth? Are we able to go down there and change people's minds? And what does it look like? I know it's a long holiday weekend. Nobody's got anywhere to go or anything to do. I think it's going to get more crowded. Maybe this is an opportunity for you guys to go down there and show us, give us a report, on the 25th, on Monday, whatever day that is, to see if we can handle it, and if we can handle it, let's do it correctly and let's make a plan. If we can't, then we'll know.
Exactly. I think we're going to, this meeting is just for May 25th through June 1st, and that will give us a little taste of how it will run.
Yeah.
And it'll
let's do a little trial,
Exactly.
The only problem is if the beach isn't being monitored by anybody, how are we going to get an idea of?
Well, that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, how they're acting. So that means that Tim and his people need to make a plan to be there for between now and the 25th or now and the 1st.
Yeah, I think now in the 25th, it's going to mean, it's going to give us an indication of how things are going to go moving forward.
Well, this doesn't start until the 25th.
Thank you. Yeah.
So right now it's not monitored and it's not being enforced, but as of Monday, it could be monitored and it could be enforced until the 1st. Am I right with that?
I don't know about Monday.
Well, the 20th, you guys are talking about the 25th.
Right.
I did have about the 25th because it technically is a government holiday and everyone that works for us currently is full-time staff. So, if that's what we have to do, that's what we'll do. But, just knowing that's technically supposed to be a government holiday.
This is Mike. Could I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mike.
Real quick. Is there anything that would prevent during this period from the 25th to the 1st of June to limit the beach area? I'm making assumptions here to parents with children below a certain age. I'm just going to pick one out, say 10 years. Can we basically, in other words, can we enforce the distance rules more easily and more effectively with families who want to get their children out of the house, but in a, shall we say, an accepting environment? So my question is there anything that stops the park commission and its staff from restricting access to the beach during this brief period of time to parents with kids under the age of X?
I'm going to comment. It's a public beach. I don't think we can limit any access to a certain age or anyone. You can't limit you can't do that.
Right. Run into families with children of different ages, and what are you going to do? Send one kid home? And
Any other comments? Public or board?
How about, is there signage down there about the masks need to be used? Okay, all right.
Yeah, no one's wearing a mask right now.
Well, have you seen the tan line meme about the people with the new 2020 tan lines? So,
okay.
Tim, one quick question. You were talking about more like rope or cords or something like that to block off. Would like a mat and people saying you have to stay on this mat with space in between it be easier to enforce? Or, people like Cindy was saying, you don't want to get somebody with a disability that might trip on a little rope or a flag or something flat. I know that we're way ahead of we're talking way ahead, but that was something I was thinking.
The only thing I immediately pops into my head about a mat is then it would have to be sanitized between every user group. And, you know, at this point, we need to look at every option that, first of all, mats are way more expensive than any other option to create a box. Second of all, then we would need to have something to sanitize it. And third of all, that's just another body we need in order to pull that off. So in the interest of easeability, if that's even a word, that would be my no to that.
Yeah.
Kevin's showing us a picture of the beach.
Yeah.
Is that, Kevin, what is that?
Somewhere in New York. I think in Brooklyn.
Oh, I was like, our beach doesn't look like that.
No, in
Park
Park
in
in Brooklyn.
Yeah. They ended up putting the circles so that people would use the circles to socially distance themselves.
You could do some tape and stake it down or some, you know, stuff.
Well, we'd have to figure out something else with sand, but yeah, that's the ultimate idea.
A caution tape around it.
Again, like I said, what a day at the beach. Not going to be fun. Oh, stay here. Stay here. You're only allowed here.
Have fun breathing in that mask.
Yeah. Don't have any fun.
I can't imagine having to have a mask on at the beach. I don't know. That's
right there. That's a deterrent. So it's
yeah, exactly. Okay. Does someone? I think sounds like we've talked out every question. And does anyone have any other comment?
I do.
Eileen, is that you?
Eileen Maplehurst. So
okay. 1 minute, please, Eileen.
Yep. You were talking about people who could not, like, being able to man what people were doing down at the lake this weekend and how impossible that was. But there are cameras all over the place. Like, can't you get a good idea of what's going on down there by being able to look at the camera feed that's all over the lake at the end of the weekend?
Mike, do you want to reply to that, or I don't know. Someone from Park and Rec want to reply to that?
I think I'd defer to Tim on how easily that would be able to, you know, it's a time and effort thing. And, you know, I think if we reviewed it after this weekend, you know, I think we need people down there educating folks of what the expectations are before we, you know, use anything as a litmus test to figure out if they're going to abide by the rules. I don't know. Yeah.
If you can review that, then you'll see, like, here is where we need to be intervening. I'm not saying that you send people fines, but you'll understand, like, this is what people are doing, and this is where we need to intervene and educate the most.
I'd review the footage if you guys don't have the time.
Yeah, well, we have the footage, we have cameras, so I mean, we can certainly use that as a just some data collection, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's so many unknowns. Like, we need to collect the data. We need to figure out, like, how people are acting and what they're doing, and to find the best way to.
Tim, is that doable?
I can tell you right now, I'm watching the feed, and I can tell you that there's nobody on the beach with a mask on right now. So yes, it's doable. It's just a matter of how do we enforce this? Because Matt Pernard and Jeff and myself and Nancy Glencross, we have the feed on our phones and our laptops, and we can watch it and we can review the feed in real time. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to, I agree with everybody. There needs to be an education piece, and there needs to be that should be how we go about it. But at the end, it's not going to matter till we physically have somebody there, because it's either going to be the police making 100 trips in order to educate, or it's going to be somebody has to physically be boots on the ground to make the education thing. Because it's one thing for us to watch it. It's another thing for us actually to start getting people to come around to what's right.
Are they within 6 feet?
This is Mike. Can I make another suggestion that actually measures what you're really trying to do?
1 minute, Mike, 1 minute.
Yeah. I suggest we undertake a trace program, and I think Jim could execute it. What difference does it make if you see people together? The real test of the effectiveness is that how many folks, if any, through tracing and otherwise, during that period of time, get sick or transfers illness to someone else. Otherwise, you're just talking about measuring the effectiveness of what looks on paper and maybe in practice looks like a great plan, but yet people get sick. So
Mike-
I'm not sure the period of time is sufficient or the population is going to be large enough to know, but that's the true measure of the, shall we say, how well we're really doing. All the rest is, movies.
So to the point, Mike, that was why the suggestion was brought up within the MRPA to create these blocks of reservations, because then you do have a way to contact trace, because you know who was at the beach at a certain time. And if somebody gets sick and they report back to the Board of Health, I was sick, and we can say, well, did you come to the beach? We can also then see the other X number of groups who were there, and we can start to do some, that gives us a way to do some sort of contact tracing, but you have to implement that in order to have the ability to do something like that. But we have that built, that's ready to go.
Great, thank you, Tim. Any other? Oh, Eileen, do you have another comment, or did you say what you wanted to say?
I don't have any other comments. I mean, I think we've used the film for other things in the past. The film can be used to learn things now. When they're not wearing masks, I wonder, are they within 6 feet of each other? But I do see that Kiki Donnie, who has her hand up.
Hi,
Thank
I
you,
do.
Eileen.
This is Kiki.
Go
I'm
ahead.
on
1 minute, Kiki, okay?
Yes, thank you. Kiki on Long Lake Road. I just wanted to say a suggestion, just as a sort of neighborhood user, someone who doesn't drive in to the parking lot, since I live on the lake, that maybe putting some signage on that other entrance, because I think in speaking with my neighbors, most of us really weren't aware of all of the restrictions. But then I also just had a question about what would the hours be that it would be staffed if we were going to do this box, and then what happens afterwards, because there's a large population of people, just from my own noticing from my house, that go after the lake is quote unquote closed, and sort of what would that look like?
Tim, do you want to take that, please?
I mean, that's all the decision that needs to be made on June 1st. I can't comment to that because I don't know if there is funds available, and if there are, what that looks like, and is that 2 people to man both the walker's entrance, 1 person at the walker's entrance and 1 person at the, driveway entrance? Is that, 3 people, so there's somebody to enforce social distancing, 2 people to check people in and then become lifeguards? There's all of these things we have to talk about that, unfortunately, Kiki, that's not something that I, am comfortable even surmising right now, because, the Board of Selectmen and the Park Commission, those are discussions that we set up for June 1st. And, I really hate to keep sounding like that's a cop-out, but we made a decision to have that conversation then. And, I owe it to all of those people to allow them to have the time to digest what we've been given, this massive amount of information, and put it out there. To your point, my goal is to create a sign, exactly what's on the trailer, and put it at the walking entrance on Lakeshore Drive. I did not have the time to do that yesterday, and I'm sorry about that.
It's not a criticism. I was just making the suggestion.
No, I agree with you. I just ran out of time, and I will get it up there as soon as I can. The other thing is, I talked to Green about using the Lakeshore Drive parking spots as kayak and canoe launches. The one thing we do have to remember is this is a great pond. We cannot restrict access in the state of Massachusetts to a great pond for people who wish to go recreational boating on the waterway. So with that, the lakeshore spots were going to be utilized, and I was going to put kayak and canoe and inflatable launch only, and we were going to use the section of dock that's normally used for the swimmers. We were going to put a couple sections of that off a lakeshore, so that we had voted in that as a fishing dock last year, but now we're going to use it as a canoe and kayak launch to spread people out. And then I talked to our resource officer, TJ Connors, Officer Connors, and said, can we restrict the motorboat ramp, which is state owned, to motorboats only if we do that to spread people out? And they were on board with that. So ultimately, if all of the stages of this plan go in place, that would be how things would kind of look.
Thank you. I think at least people in the neighborhood maybe are looking for some more just communication, because if you watch the news, it's sort of like the beaches are open, everything. So I mean, just personally, I didn't even know that it was only a transient situation right now. And so maybe if there was just some signage, or even I don't know how. Not them saying you have to flyer the neighborhood, but just for the people who kind of randomly walk down there and maybe aren't making a day plan to go. Because we live here, so we just kind of randomly go down.
Thank you, Kiki, for those comments. And just, I don't know if you've been on the meeting since the beginning, but we are just talking about the time period from May 25th to June 1st right now. And then there will be a meeting June 1st to discuss what will happen after that. Any other comments from anyone? Kevin.
I just want to say, I think it's pretty clear that with no oversight right now, people are clearly not being safe and taking precautions. I mean, between now and May 25th, I don't know if the board's prepared to issue some sort of guidance to keep the beach closed, maybe enlist the LPD to enforce that, and then come May 25th, allow the, Tim and Alicia and Mike and their crew to implement the best practices plan that they have in mind. And then we'll measure that and see if it can be done in a safe and positive way to allow the beach to remain open past June 1st. But I think we need to take baby steps and keep things in line and in order to give ourselves the best possible outcome for the residents and for public health. I get it. People want to go out there. They want to get the fresh air, but we just need to do it in a really calculated and concise way.
Okay, does someone, it sounds like we've got everybody's comments. Does someone want to make a motion for the time period, May 25th to June 1st?
I had one further comment on the.
John, okay, 1 minute, John, please.
Yeah. The governor's order for wearing masks, it allows a medical exemption. And so we just need to keep that in mind, that even if you saw somebody down at the beach not wearing a mask, they would be able to say they have difficulty, and they do not have to provide any documentation behind that. So additionally, I would like to submit a peer-reviewed article about wearing reusable cloth masks. That peer-reviewed article shows that it actually increases chances of infection. So I'd like folks on the board to review that and just get an understanding that, the masks provide some level of protection, but if they're not used correctly, they actually could increase infection rates. So thank you.
Thanks, John. You can email that article to the Board of Health if you go on the website. Janet Fairchild. Janet, I don't know your email off the top of my head, but it must be on the website. So you can email that article and Janet can forward it to all the boards, please.
Luis, before we go to that vote, can we just, I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm trying to look through all the screens here. Can we just see if any of the Park Commission or Chair Lady Napoli have any closing comments before we go to any of that? Because we've talked about a lot.
Sure. Does it, Mike, you want to take it first?
Sure. I mean, I think it's pretty clear to me which way the Board of Health is going to go here. I would just, whatever decision's made today, I would just ask that, come June 1st, everybody comes in with an open mind, and, we can kind of have a robust discussion then. And I don't know. I think the discussion's been pretty healthy here this afternoon, so I'm comfortable with whatever decisions you guys choose to make.
Okay, thanks, Mike. How about Cindy? Do you have a last comment?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a lot of variables and moving parts with this situation and this decision. I would prefer that the Board of Health would maybe table their decision until we can have our comprehensive meeting on June 1st, just because there are so many other unanswered questions regarding the operation of the beach, even a review of the plans, the way the beach will be, I want to say, laid out and operated and managed. And it's just, it's a timing issue. It's a tough call, and I get it. It's how do we regulate the beach in the interim, but I don't think that a final decision can be made until we've had our meeting on June 1st.
So you're suggesting to do nothing between now and June 1st?
That's what I'm struggling with, Kevin. To be honest with you, I mean, like I said, I think that the signage that Tim put on the beach is great. I think it provides really clear guidance on what the expectations are for the residents. I actually also drew up a sign that basically informs the residents if they don't adhere to the guidance that's being recommended, that the beach will be closed.
That's what's happening right now.
Would you say, Kevin?
I think that's what's happening right now.
They're not adhering.
Right.
Right. I don't think people really understand the consequence of not adhering to the guidelines. I don't think they understand that the boards are watching the situation and monitoring the situation, and that there will be repercussions if they do not follow the guidelines. And I appreciate that it's hard to enforce, but aside from having somebody down there all day long, which just is not feasible right now, the best alternative, I think, is to just wait until the meeting on June 1st, monitor the situation and see how it goes. And just, try to be clearer on the guidelines. And the other issue too is enforcement. We circle back to enforcement. We cannot afford to have an officer down there monitoring the beach. But there's just too many unanswered questions right now. I think for the Board of Health to make a decision at this time, I mean, my recommendation would be to just wait. If you could just wait until June 1st, till we have all the information, and also to see how it goes this weekend. And while we're talking about this, how many cases are there currently in Littleton? I understand that the website hasn't been updated in a few weeks. I didn't know if Mr. Gareffi's on the phone, if he could answer that question.
Don't know it off the top of my head, but there should have been new state numbers on Wednesday and numbers over the past weekend. So I'll put together the update this weekend.
Okay. So, and I'm just saying, I know the information on the town's website has not been updated since May 6th. Okay. Someone brought that to my attention today. I'd like to see if we could get that updated.
Sure.
I'd appreciate it. So
this is Mike. The last time the state updated, which was, I guess, yesterday, the day before, I'm going to say approximately, only because it's an undercount, it's 94. We've been holding pretty steady. It could be as high as 96. And some folks I've talked to who are doing the epidemiology of small towns like us, it's probably the actual number of cases maybe as many as double that, because not everything gets reported because of discontinuities in the reporting system. So in fact, the number of cases in town is unknown. What we also don't know is how many people who come through town and interact with our residents get sick as a result.
Right.
So you can't answer the question. I'm sorry.
No, Mike, I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, confirmed reported cases. And I do understand that a majority of those cases are related to the Life Care Center, but I fully understand what you're saying. It's not an easy answer. It's more complex than that. So I don't know if I helped her or not, Madam Chair, with my response from the Board of Selectmen.
I appreciate your response, Cindy. It always is good to hear another side. Lisa, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. There's so many moving parts and there's a lot to decide. And like I said, I go either way. But I think that it's going to be kind of hard this weekend or before June 1st, that without staffing there, we won't be able, unless it's just by video, we won't be able to know if people are following the precautions and whether or not we can say, hey, you know what, they're just not following precautions. How can we tell? Because there's nobody there monitoring.
Right.
So how can we tell by June? What kind of more information are we going to have by June 1st? Are we going to have police reports or, videotape, or how are we going to know if people are abiding by the new regulations?
Right.
First.
Mike, can you reply to that?
Yeah, so just in general, I wanted to reply to what Cindy and Lisa just said. I just want to caution everyone that we shouldn't be looking at this weekend or next week as a litmus test to figure out how people are acting down at the beach until we have someone down there. If I don't know, if Tim wants to spend his weekend down there, it's a lot to ask. It's a holiday weekend. Tim has a family. Everybody else does as well. So until we have someone down there monitoring and educating people, telling them, take a look at these signs. You need to have a mask. When you need to have a mask, we shouldn't look at, pull the tape on Monday and say, look at what's going on at the beach. No one's abiding by the rules. We need to have it. We need to have someone down there educating them before we can make an assessment as far as whether or not people are willing to follow the guidelines. We had a resident say, she didn't even know about the guidelines, and that's no one's fault. It's so many moving parts here. Tim's trying to keep up, but I think that's very important that we don't assess people's willingness to abide by the guidelines until we have someone down there, educating them, asking them to go look at the signs and things like that.
We're kind of in
Tim, can you reply to that? Tim?
So the only thing I want to say is to Chair Lady Napoli's point. I've been championing keeping the beach open as much as possible and trying to figure out how do we do that and enforce the rules. And, as that person, if we're looking for somebody to be there, I reiterate the fact that we cannot enforce the rules that are created until Monday, because right now we're in phase 0 and that is transitory only. So me being down there is kind of a moot point anyway, because technically we should be able to have everybody moving along. I will commit to, get Cindy Chair Lady Napoli's plan kind of in place. If the board is okay with the payroll that we already have and myself going down there and us figuring out how we're going to manage and educate from preferably Tuesday, but if it has to be Monday through Sunday, from our normal hours of 10 to 5 or 10 to 6, whatever everybody's comfortable with, I will take that on the head for the next week as part of my job as the assistant director and the manager of the beach, so that we can come to an equitable conclusion. My ask also would be that we don't wait till June 1st to hash this out. I would really like the board's approval to have a task force put together, one member of each board, the chiefs, and if there's citizens out there who have knowledge, like Katrina Hagberg, who sent us that email, I believe she's a state epidemiologist, to put a plan together, send drafts back to our boards that we can edit and think about, and then have more of an actual final draft to go into the meeting on June 1st with. I think that would save everybody a lot of time. And through that process, we can also give a daily update on what we're actually seeing at Long Lake. And that is my, I've just been digesting this for 2 minutes. And since Chair Lady Napoli said that, that's, I think, the best case scenario, with not spending any additional funds and educating people for a week and seeing how things go.
Okay, if I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Cindy.
So what I'm hearing is, it looks like the best course of action right now would be to close the beach for the weekend. That would be the safest route to take until we can have staffing available on the beach starting on the 26th, presumably the Tuesday, correct?
Maybe the 25th, yeah.
Or the 25th, based on Park and Rec staffing.
Availability, right.
Availability, thank you. Put together a task force in the interim to prepare for the joint meeting on June 1st to provide feedback to the boards as to what was observed, having the beach staffed during that time in a plan going forward.
I'll second that.
Okay. I don't know. Is it okay that Cindy made a motion for the?
Oh, it wasn't a motion. I was just kind of I was reiterating what was just said. I'm not making a motion. This is your board.
It's 4:59 though, so.
I know, I'm getting hot.
I'm just reiterating what I just surmised from everyone's comments. I'm not making the motion. I'm
Okay.
muting now.
I'll make that motion to close the beach for the weekend until Tim and his staff have the availability to get down there on either Monday or Tuesday, the 25th or 26th, and then implement their staffing plan and their mitigation plan to make sure everyone's acting safely, following guidance. And I'll volunteer also to be a member of that task force that you mentioned to go over the data and the footage and see how folks are acting. And have Tim provide a report the June 1st meeting so we can take the next steps.
Is there a second?
I'll second, and I'll also volunteer if anybody needs me, needs another body down at the lake for a shift. I'd be happy to help.
Bring your sunscreen.
Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Kevin?
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike?
Mike Zeldin, no.
And Louise Nichols, yes. I will also volunteer to help out during the week to whatever you need. Okay, so the beach can be open as far as the Board of Health is concerned from the 26th.
No, we
to
just
the 1st.
closed it.
For the
We
week.
just closed it for the weekend.
We close it for the weekend. It's not open.
Weekend.
It's closed.
Just closed
Yes.
it.
Hmm?
So that we can, because it's not staffed and it's not monitored.
Correct.
Yes, but we're going to open it May 26th through June 1st.
Or 25th, whenever Tim says it's he can staff it. All right.
Okay. Do we need another motion? Are you telling me we need another
No,
motion?
we're good.
What are you gonna do? Block the parking lot then, Tim, or just put up signs?
No, well, we have signage up, and I think at this point, the best course of action, if everybody is amenable to it, is that we collectively make a statement that, the town at this time, the town of Littleton officials have, the beach is still under phase 1 and will remain under phase 1, which is transitory only through, let's call it, to be safe, May 26th, at which point we'll update the website, we'll update the Facebook page, and we'll move into phase 2. We'll explain the rules very clearly, and we'll be there to advise. And I think the only piece that's missing here is, once that happens, what are we going to allow after the staff leaves at 5 o'clock? Does it go back to closed transitory status? I think that's the only piece that's missing. Or do we allow it just to be, as Kevin put it earlier, the Wild West?
Well, let's take a look at the footage and see what happens this weekend while it's transitory only, and then we'll have a pretty good idea what's going to happen after you guys leave.
Great.
Okay, so the next meeting will be June 1st, and that will be a combined Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, Board of Health, Park and Rec, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What time is that, June 1st?
We do not have a time yet. I'll coordinate with the town administrator on that.
Okay, thank you.
Motion.
Okay. Tim?
Cindy, I know your meetings have been really long, and now that we're going to have this added thing, does it make sense to post the meeting at a different time and just have this be the only topic on that separate meeting?
Right. So I'll review the agenda with our town administrator, Tim. I totally agree with you. We're going to need a considerable block of time for this topic. So I'll review that with her and see what we can come up with.
Just one last thing, Jim. Does it make sense to get some signs printed, for the interim for the weekend, or do you think what Tim has up there is sufficient to notify folks as transient only?
I think I haven't seen the signs that are down there, but I go down and take a look and see. I think posting it on all the websites will be important also. I mean, people will read signs and do what they feel they're going to do with the signs anyway, but I can go down and take a look.
Right. Who posts on the websites?
Alicia?
I was just saying we do. That's us. That's our job.
Okay, sounds like we are good, in my opinion. Does someone want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, let's take a roll call. Kevin?
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike?
Mike Selden, yes.
And Louise Nichols, yes. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. I know it was a long one, but thank you.
Thank you.